Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and today I am going to show you how to position an oval stone sideways like this. I've only done it a few times in my videos before, so it's not something I do a lot, so I wanted to really focus on that in this video and kind of show you how to really lock it in, prevent it from wobbling side to side, things like that. And then you can either do however you normally do or whatever you like for the bail and the top, or you can follow it along. This is what I decided to do here, is show you all of these beautiful textures combined, and for that I'm using lots of different sizes of half round wires. You can see different thicknesses, but if you don't have all the different half round wires, that's totally fine. You can use whatever ones you have. You'll just have less variety in texture, or you can not even do it and just do the plain wires or just twist them, like this one's just twisted here. So you have different options. You don't have to have all of these types of wires to do this design. So let's go ahead and get started making this pendant. We're going to be using 20 gauge square wire as well as 24 gauge half round. Both of these are dead soft copper from riogrande.com. And then 2 optional wires here as well that I will be using for decorative purposes. You don't have to have these. If you don't have these, that's totally fine. You can skip that step. But they are both half round, and one is 22 gauge and one is 18 gauge half round dead soft copper. For the tools, I'm going to be using wire cutters to cut the wire. These are Swanstrom brand wire cutters, and I'll be using pliers. These are the Lindstrom brand RX 7890 pliers. My stone is this Lepidolite with quartz. It is an oval and it measures almost exactly an inch, maybe just like a hair more than an inch. So we'll just say inch, but anywhere around that size will be totally fine. If yours is significantly larger, that's okay. I would size up, maybe if it's like a lot larger, to 19 or 18 gauge square wire, just so it'll be more sturdy to hold it. And cut your wires a few inches longer as well to account for the bigger size of the stone, but that's the only kind of adjustment if your stone is much larger. But it can be many different sizes, and this design will still work. So I'm going to start with 4 pieces of that square 20 gauge wire. These are going to be our base wires for the frame, and they are 8 inches long. Next, I'm going to hold those 4 wires kind of roughly in the middle like this. Make sure they're just like stacked together nicely like that. And I'm going to take my 24 gauge half round wire. I'm going to start with the little tail end of it. The rest of it is connected to the spool. And I'm just going to wrap it around a few times to get it started. The flat side down, the half rounded side up. And my first tip for an oval stone positioned sideways is this little connection that we normally do when we make our wire frame. If you make it a little bit longer than normal, that will be really helpful in this case, and you'll see why later. So now that I got it started, I'm going to guide the wire with my hand because it's connected to the spool now, this part of the wire. So I just need to turn the piece and guide the wire with my hand like this, and it kind of coils or winds onto these other wires here, and that prevents this wire from getting twisted. So I'm going to do this for a little bit since I want this to be longer than typical. All right, I'm sure that's good enough now. So what I'm going to do is trim my wires so that the ends are here on the same side. It doesn't matter which side you choose, but you just want the little wire ends. Sorry, I'm trying not to drop this tiny piece of wire onto my floor. As long as the little ends are on the same side here. And now we're gonna take our pliers and just push down on the wire ends to flatten them so they're not sticking out, but also just push down on this whole bit here like that. Just go across that whole part. And for comparison, this is my stone. This is how it looks. So my stone's gonna be sitting here. So you can see how much of the bottom portion of the stone it takes up. Like how much longer this bit is than normal. So what we wanna do now is we wanna bend it around the stone. So I think like this looks cool because in the white might look like clouds or the sky. So I'm gonna position it this way, and this is gonna go on the bottom here. So what I wanna do is I wanna start bending these 4 wires around my stone, and you can do this on a flat surface. That will be easier than doing it in the air like me, but I'm just gonna do it here in front of the camera. So I'm trying to center the wrap so it's on the bottom of my stone like this, and not too far to the left, not too far to the right, just like perfectly centered on the bottom here. And bending my frame kind of around the edges of my stone there. All right, let's see what happened there. There we go. That's what that looks like. So I'm bending around the edges. Oops, see how these are kind of getting discombobulated here. Let me try to fix that by having them all together like that. All right. So we've bent our frame around the stone. The stone is kind of sideways, how we hoped. And now you can see this happens a lot. This little wrap here gets off center. You may be trying really hard and it might be looking perfect, and then all of a sudden somehow it's off center now. And that's why we made it so nice and long, because we can unravel some of it now. You can try to push it. So I'm pushing it, and mine is actually sliding, but sometimes it doesn't slide very well. So it's still a little bit off center. I'll show you, in case pushing doesn't work for you, I'll show you the unraveling portion of that. So I almost got it centered now when I pushed it, but it's maybe a tiny bit more to the right. So what you would do is you would take your pliers and just grab that half round wire and just unravel it, as much of it as you need to get it centered again. And then you would trim it and just push down on that wire end. And you have quite a bit of room here to do that on both sides because this is nice and long. And that's why that was like my little trick for these stones. So say you got that perfect now and you're happy with that. For me, it's like, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it's almost like leaning a little bit forward. Like the bottom isn't flat. So I'm just using my pliers to kind of bend it. There we go, nice and flat now. So the front 2 wires here, what we want to do is we want to bend them to the back from the front. So first what we're going to do is we're going to kind of just curve these wires so they're a little bit straighter and not crisscrossing each other so much like this. And once you do that, you just want to pop your stone back in because sometimes it messes with your frame a little bit here. So there we go. Now we can take the frontmost wire. So just kind of follow that along, figure out your frontmost wire, and now we're going to take it and pull it through kind of this center here, this central hole. So make sure your stone's in there and push that wire. See how it's just kind of curving around the stone and going from the front to the back. So I'm going to do that on both of them. So taking this next wire on this side, pulling it through that central bit like this from front to back. All right, so once you've done that and those are out of the way, what you want to do is you want to close up your frame. So this is your frame and where it's coming together at the top here. So you just want to make sure that you have it nice and centered, and there in that middle portion, put little bends in your frame, just going side to side. This is what we normally do with most stones. So this part is just the regular way. So I brought them together. It looks centered. Everything still looks good. These wires are out of my way. We're going to finish them later. You can pop your stone out if you want. I'm going to kind of reinforce this little bend, this little area here. The square wires have a flat side and then they have kind of a corner since they're shaped like an actual square. And sometimes they kind of shift around. So this one, almost like the corner is facing me now instead of the flat side. So I'm just going to turn it a little bit with my pliers because that'll make it kind of stack together more nicely with the other wire when you have the correct side there. So I'm just gonna reinforce that little bend, make sure it looks nice and in the middle. And now I'm gonna go grab that same half round wire that I have been using, that 24 gauge half round wire, and I'm going to get that started here, wrapping around all 6 of these wires. So we have 3 wires on one side, 3 on the other. See how this little bit is sticking out here? That's from the other side. So they're not stacked together perfectly. I'm going to push that so that they are. And now I'm going to grab that half round wire and start wrapping that around. Just like this. Just like that. I'm going to press on that. And slide that down. Slide that down. I'm going to grab that little tail end. So from back to front through this little frame, we're going to pull it and trim that little end off. Just get right in there and as short as you can, trim that off. This area is going to be kind of covered up anyways. So now it's connected. And now we're going to make our bail. So this portion is not as important to the stone being positioned the way that it is. So in other words, if you want to do a different design up here, do your bail and swirls and decorations differently, that's totally fine. I'm going to use these 2 wires. These are key to locking in my stone. You know, bending our frame was another key to locking it in sideways. But this whole bail portion, that can be done in lots of different ways. So I'm going to take my wires, I'm going to bend them 2 that are on this side to the right, and then the other ones to their respective side. So now I'm just turning my piece, guiding this half round wire around these 2 wires, which are going to form my bail. And I'm just going to do this for a little bit until it's about 3/4 of an inch. That's roughly how I like my bails, but feel free to do longer or shorter depending on the size that you prefer your bails to be. All right, so now we're just going to trim that wire off here in the back. So this is our front, this is our bail, and then here kind of in the back of the bail. And I'm going to press down on that little wire end, and I'm just going to press down across the whole bail here, just like that. And let's go ahead and lock our stone in before we do the bail and everything else. So I'm going to grab my stone, I'm going to position it how I like this. And I'm going to come over here on the back. I'm going to grab my pliers and the backmost wire on each side. This is going to be another problem that you're going to see that arises, but I'm going to bend them as I normally would. Just kind of bend it onto the stone to prevent the stone from popping out. And on this side as well. All right, so it actually didn't really happen this time, but sometimes it makes these wires kind of stick out and just get all wonky when you bend them. It didn't happen, but if it does for you and it's making it stick out, so when you're looking from the front, you can like see this back wire now, what you can do is you can kind of follow this along. Here's your back wire coming this way. You can grab it and just pull on it a little bit, and that will tighten it up and make it not visible from the front. And let's just put these back on each side where they belong. So now our stone is trapped from the back, but here from the front it isn't trapped yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pliers. This wire is still kind of loose, right? Because we just tucked it and here it is coming out the back. So I'm going to kind of slide down here and put a little bend in the wire. So now when I press it down, you can see that like little sliver of the stone showing, and it's trapping it from the front. I'm going to do that on the other side as well. The little bends are just on either side of this little wrap here. Let me push it down because the wire started sticking out since it's not attached to anything. So now we're going to finish these off. So I'm going to take one at a time. So let's start with this kind of left one. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of press it down so it's up against the stone. And then here I'm going to take it and I'm going to bend it. So it's going around this edge. You don't want a gap there. You want it to be nice and against the stone, like this. All right, so here on the other side, you just want to look that they look similar and symmetrical. You can see this one is a little bit more on the stone, whereas this one is closer to the edge. So I'm just gonna push on it a little bit here as I bend it around, kind of looking at it and ensuring that I'm getting a even symmetrical look here on both sides. And then I'm gonna bend these wires now onto the front like this. Maybe just press on this one a little bit because it's not as tight as the other bend there. All right, still looking good on the edges here. They haven't moved out of place. So what I'm gonna do now is just trim them and tuck them away. So I'm trimming and leaving a little end like that so I can tuck the end in there, but you don't want the end to be super long so it sticks out the back. You want it to just kind of fit in there nicely. So just a nice little end like this should do. And what we're gonna do is press on that little end. Sorry, I'm trying to find a way to hold it where the other wires don't block the view. All right, and when I press down on that, kind of bend it in there. Oops. There we go, bent it away. You can see it in here, but it's not so long that it sticks out the back. All right, so same thing here. Bending it in that direction. Just kind of pressing down on it a little bit in there. There it is. So here is what our stone looks like from the front. And this is really key for preventing stones from wobbling. This will be helpful as well if you have a round stone, not just an oval, because they can turn and shift and kind of go side to side a little bit within the frame. But when you do this, it just really can't go anywhere because you're locking it on both sides here from the top. So that was really the most important thing about positioning an oval sideways like this. The rest is just going to be doing the bail and the decoration around the bail. So I'll show you how I did it for this pendant, but again, feel free to do it in, you know, if you have your own favorite way to do that. So I'm taking the bail, bending it, kind of just curving it front to back, taking the ends of it, tucking them through that gap there, trying to kind of line this little wrap up down here. I'm gonna press on that like that just to fully close the bail. Gonna take these wires that are sticking out the front and push them up just all the way up like this. So now our bail is locked in place. You know, you can't pull it up. It's kind of locked by these wires here. So this wire, the left wire, I'm gonna leave that alone. And this right wire, I'm gonna trim it off. So bring it forward a little bit, get in there with my pliers as short as I can, trim it off. You might still be able to see the little wire end of it as long as it's not really sticking out. We're going to cover this portion up anyway, so it'll be fine. Even if it's sticking out like a tiny bit, as long as it's not a lot, just cut it as short as you can. All right, so we're going to leave this wire, and now we have these 4 wires here to finish up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire here on the right side, the frontmost wire. So we have 2 wires here, the frontmost one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist it. Since this is square, it twists, forming this kind of pattern. I'm holding it with my pliers and turning the pendant. And the more you do it, the tighter the twist becomes. Just don't over twist it because it can become a little bit fragile and snap easily if you just really twist it a lot. I'm going to do that to this little wire as well. So I'm twisting the both of them like that. And I'm going to start with this wire. I'm going to go ahead, bring it forward towards myself, and now with my finger, I'm going to curve it and press at the same time, press and curve against that bail like this. Now I'm going to kind of sweep it to the right like this. You can use your pliers if you need to get in there and kind of press on it if you want, like that. And now I'm going to bend it from front to back. I'm going to take my pliers, trim, leave a little wire end like that. Take the wire end, tuck it in there, and let's press down on that. tuck it away, connecting that wire. So this next wire, again, this is all going to be optional, but I'm going to be using all my half round wires that I showed you. This first one is that same one that I did on here, which is the thinnest one. That's just how I'm going to do it. It doesn't really matter the order, but I'm going to do the thinnest one here on this next wire for decoration. So I'm going to start by wrapping it around to kind of get it started there, wrapping that little wire end. Once it's nice and short, I'm gonna press down on that, slide it all the way down here, kind of push on that. Here's what it looks like. And now I'm going to turn the piece and guide the wire. What can happen sometimes when you're doing this, if you've only made just a couple of wraps, is you're doing this, but instead of adding more wraps, this whole little wrap that you made just kind of turns and you're not adding more. So what you have to do, if that happens to you, is hold it with your hand. So if you can like press on it, like I'm pressing on it now with my nail, kind of almost like pinch it to prevent it from moving out of place as you lay down this other wire. That's how you can add more, and at some point it's going to be stable enough where it's not going to move around. It's going to hold on and grip nicely, so you can do what I'm doing now, which is just turning the piece and winding or coiling the wire onto it like this. So I'm just going to do this for a little bit. What I want to do with this wire eventually is follow this other wire along. So it doesn't have to be very long for that. I'm just going to take my best guess, and then I can either add more or unravel if it's too long. So I'm going to put it right next to that other wire, just following it along. I can see this is probably not going to reach, so while I have it here, I'm gonna add just a few more. Ooh, got a little twisted there. I can't even figure out which side is which. I'm gonna add a few more wraps here because I can tell it's looking a little bit short. All right, hopefully that will be enough. Okay, so again, just guiding it right up against that other wire there. You can use your pliers as well if you need to just kind of get in there and adjust it in any way. Press it down maybe. Oh, doesn't quite reach, a little bit more. I want it to kind of get to this edge so it doesn't look like it just stops abruptly, because we're going to do the same thing with this wire. We're going to bring it around that edge and then tuck it away in the back. All right. All right, that's going to be good. So I'm just going to trim it in a way that the little wire end is going to end up here on the back. So if we're looking at it this way, and this is the front, this is the back where you want the wire end to be. That way you won't be able to see it, because when we press this wire down this way, you won't be able to see the wire end. And actually, now that it kind of spread out here a tiny bit, it's a smidge too long. So I'm going to unwind it a little bit, because I want it to end here on the edge, but I don't want it to like get tucked in there. I don't want it to be that long. So let me unravel just a few quick little wraps, and let me trim that. So just tucking that little wire end under. All right, there we go. So now when I'm bending it, it's just the bare wire here, not the wrap. And I'm just gonna check one more time how it's looking from the front. And now I'm going to trim so that it is long enough to tuck it in there, but not so long that it's gonna stick out the front. Press down on that. And it's tucked away. So now we have this wire here. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna curve it, and I'm going to put it next to the other wire like this. I'm gonna take it and with my pliers, take the little end of it, push it through the bail, kind of all the way around. And if it's really short, you can just trim it. See how it forms a loop? So you can trim off this end and just close the loop, and it's going to be attached. Or if you have kind of a longer wire end like me here, and it reaches all the way across, then you can go ahead and just wrap it all the way across like this, and then take this little end and tuck it away into the bail. Just press it down into the bail like that, so the end is hidden away. And here's that wire. But the second option makes a little piece of wire here. It's a difference. All right, so now we have these two wires. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my 22 gauge half round wire, which is the next step up from the 24. So you'll see this is the 24 that we did before, and this one will be a little bit thicker. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that started by wrapping it around a few times. I'm just gonna trim this end off. It's all kind of gnarly there, so I don't want to use that bit. So I'm just wrapping it around a few times to get it started. When you feel some resistance, when you try to kind of push it, you can still push it to slide it down, but there's like a little bit of resistance, you know, it's kind of gripping onto it. So I'm gonna trim that off. Press down on this little wire end here, like that, and push that in there all the way down. There it is. And now I'm going to coil that a little more. So just turning the piece and guiding the wire now. And again, I'm just gonna guess how long that needs to be, and then I can add more. So I'm just gonna bend this kind of in the same curvature as these other wires here, laying it across underneath. You can see by comparison it's a little bit thicker than that other wire there. Bending it to the back, and then I can see it's a little bit too long, so I'm just going to unwind it and trim. Like that. Take this little wire end, tuck it under there, like that. Take this wire, bend it to the back, trim that off, And then what I'm going to do, because this little wire, once we press it in there, you might be able to see it from the front. Not always, but sometimes, and you can just kind of see the wire end there. So if you take your pliers, this works especially well with round nose pliers, but I'm not using them in this video, so I'm just going to do it with the regular pliers. But you just want to squish that little tip of the wire so it's nice and flat. See that? See how it's really, really flat? So when I'm going to press it down, instead of seeing that blunt little wire end, it's going to be so flat that it's going to just kind of blend in and you won't be able to see it. But we do have to press it down fairly well here. See it in there? You don't see that kind of square blunt end. And it's much better hidden this way. So I'm going to do that on this with this next one as well. So now I'm going to use the last half round wire, which I have, and that is the 18 gauge. So we did 24, 22, I don't have 20 or 19 or anything, but I do have this 18, which is quite thick. This one is a little tricky because it is so thick, it's pretty hard to wind around, especially because we're winding it around a pretty thin wire. So I'm just going to get it started here. If you wrap this too much before you slide it down, you might get too much resistance and you might have problems actually sliding it down. So mine slides, so I'm going to trim it and press down on that little wire end and just press on that whole bit, slide it down there. What might be difficult to do with the sliding, if you're having trouble, you can hold this with one set of pliers and then push on this with another set of pliers. Sometimes it's kind of hard to push on it with your finger, especially if you don't have long fingernails. So I don't have two sets of pliers here with me, so I'm just kind of trying my best to get it down there. There we go. So all the way down, and now, oh, now the thing's finally happening that I wanted to show you. So look what happens. I'm turning it, and the whole thing just turns. See how I'm not adding any wraps to this at all? It's just turning around and around. So you just want to hold this down. So you can hold it with your nail, or if that's difficult to do or you don't have long nails, you can hold it with your pliers and just turn. So you can only do a little bit at a time this way, but it's not going to take much until you have enough coils on there to kind of stabilize and make it so that you don't have to do it anymore. So see, I'm adding manually, kind of one wrap at a time. Ooh, let me just check if that's good enough. Oh, no, it's still turning around and around. So let's hold it and turn. Still turning, and do one more. I know that this is like a very slow way to do it. Oh, now it's gripped enough. Now it's just doing it on its own. But that's how you would do it until it's good enough to where it just does this on its own. And so again, I don't know how long I need this to be. So we'll just check after a little bit here. So I want this to go right next to the other wire there. I don't want it to go underneath like and behind it because I don't want it to be blocked. I want it to be visible here in the front. There we go. That's good. So maybe just like 2 more times or so. This one's very thick, so there we go. Now I'm going to trim. And I'm gonna press down on that little wire end. And now I'm gonna take this wire and I'm gonna bend it from front to back. Make sure it looks good here from the front. And that looks good to me. So let's trim. And let's squish that end. So when we press it down, it won't be too visible from the front because it'll be nice and flat. Like that. And now I can go ahead and tuck it in there and press it down. There we go. Now let's check. Yeah, that looks good. And now we have all of this nice different textures here at the top by our bale. And our stone is positioned exactly how we want it, kind of a landscape looking stone. So that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave me a like down below and don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every single weekend. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.